Good morning. Well, we have been seeing lot of noise in USA, and that is primarily because some players refuse to stand up for the national anthem, for the flag. And their plea, they were protesting and said right which is given to them by the United States Constitution via Amendment 1, that everybody has a right to protest since freedom of expression is granted. Agreed. It's undeniable that in any democratic setup, right to express your opinion as well as the freedom of expression is granted. It's inviolable. Really? Yes, it is. But these rights also enjoin certain responsibilities. Every right has equal quota, equal quotient of a certain inherent responsibility. But what's happening in USA reminds me of what happens in India and Pakistan. In those two countries, the students have a protest against the university for the rising of the fee. And what they do? They start burning the buses, stoning people, making life hell for the people. A community wants a reservation, and what they do is not only the protests, they stop trains, burn them, kill people. What a protest it is. In Pakistan, they want to protest in favor of Islam and they hunt out Christians and either burn them, lynch them, or prosecute them and judicially destroy them. This sort of a protest is not a protest. This is not freedom of expression. It's downright treason to the country, destruction of public property, and or putting innocent citizens at harm, at risk, is something simply not acceptable, and yet we condone it very often in the name of freedom of expression and a right to protest. And that is exactly what is happening in United States today. CNN and all the print news media, practically the leftist news media, the liberal news media as they call it, are saying that since the Constitution, via its First Amendment, confers on them the right to the freedom of expression, it also confers on them the right to protest. Absolutely correct. But when we are protesting, there are certain norms. The protest is against racial discrimination, they say. A very laudable cause. There must not be discrimination under any circumstance. But how does insulting the national anthem a protest against racial discrimination? Is the same flag and the same anthem that has motivated the armies to fight across the borders and protect the country. It is the same flag and anthem that identifies the people of a certain nation and a certain country. But to insult them in the name of saying that it is a justified process is stretching it too far. As I said earlier, what was a norm, an accepted norm in South Asia, is slowly and steadily becoming a social norm in United States of America, which prides itself on being the citadel of freedom. Now, when this sort of anarchy is applauded and praised, when this sort of twisted arguments rule the sway, when such sort of ingenuous arguments are misinterpreting the facts rules the day, then it's a sad day for any nation. I don't care that they salute the flag or not, but I do care that the flag has got to be respected because it embodies the essential aspects of that nation, of that country. I remember the Indian tribe flag is usually stamped upon, destroyed, burned by the protesters every Republic Day or Independence Day. Here in Ontario, by the protagonists of Khalistan. Is that justified? This is a flag which embodies the country, as I said, the values of the country and the identity of the country. So burning that flag as a show of protest, as a mark of protest, should be considered an act of treason. And some countries it is done so. Secondly, the destruction of the public property is a natural corollary of this sort of protest. We have seen how the protests and the counter-protests have destroyed property and human life in USA. And in India, there never are counter-protests. They never are. Students are protesting against, say, increase in the tuition fee. They'll stop the buses, the local buses, either stone them, or if they're very generous, let the passengers get off the bus and then set the bus on fire. What a protest! It's a destruction of the public property and it has nothing to do with the university. So what do we do? As a matter of fact, there is a need to codify the means and the process of protest. The protest must be against the person or the organization against whom you are protesting. You have a protest against racial discrimination. Who has indulged in that discrimination? Protest there. They say the police has. Yes. Then the proper place is the police headquarters of the courts where the protest is taking place. The racial discrimination is taking place. You say, in general, there is a racial discrimination. Absolutely, you have a right. Take out a procession. Take out a torchlight procession without disturbing the people. Have conferences, have seminars, but absolutely don't hurt the innocent. When the protests block the streets, a patient going to the hospital in an ambulance might die and on the way. This is downright murder. So, the guidelines must be established. And the first is that the symbols of the nation shall not be brought into picture because they are not responsible either for the discrimination or for the non-discrimination. Secondly, the protesters and the counter-protesters should be held individually, separately, and severely responsible for any damage to the public property or at the same time insult to the national institutions. Thirdly, The place for protest must be clearly demarcated. Now, I admire the British for one thing. They set up the Hyde Park where any individual or any group that has a grievance can go there, hold a demonstration there, make speeches there, and that can be done without disturbing the normal life of the people around you. That is the civilized way of protest. But what happens in India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, or now in USA is a crude, uncivilized, uncultured, inhuman, often, and brutish protest. That is in fact a group trying to hold a power of tyranny on the majority. And that cannot be permitted and should not be permitted. And then, media, they misrepresent the facts. Here the facts in USA are very clear and simple. The NFL people, when they insulted the flag and the anthem, they broke their own laws as well. NFL laws says very clearly that when the game is to start, all the players would come, stand in queues, stand in rows, place their hand on their heart, and stay still till for 3 minutes as long as the national anthem is being sung. And anybody not doing so shall be punished and may be removed from the team. Now, if that is already in the law of that organization, the rule of that organization, the bylaws of that organization, why should they not be implemented? And when Trump called for the implementation of those laws, he is called a white supremacist. What a tragedy. And what is, shall I say, miscalculation of the people's opinion. Today, majority of the people are against NFL. And the NFL players are the heroes of the people. Let's not forget that. If NFL had a grouse or has a grouse against racial discrimination, is a grouse against NFL authorities? They can't say that because 99% of the players might be blacks. So there is no grouse against the NFL authorities. Then they say, well, the grouse is against the society as a whole. And if the society as a whole is responsible, what is required is protest definitely, but at a proper place, at a proper time, in a proper manner. The place was not the playfield. The time was not when the national anthem was being sung and the flag was being unfurled. So neither the place nor the occasion. And the time was not proper. So all the three things were not there. They should have had a march, a sit-in, or any peaceful means to make people aware of that. The purpose of a protest is not to destroy. It is to make people aware of the reality. And by disrespecting the national symbols of sovereignty, you do not make people aware. You simply create, on the one side, among the protagonists of the protest, a feeling of hatred and a feeling of disgust. And in the opponents, you create a feeling of either indifference or of repugnance. So how is that justified? And thirdly, as I said, media is fault. The public as a whole should make it very clear that protests are welcome. But neither the destruction of the public property and harming the innocent bystanders as happens in India and Pakistan, or disrespect national institutions, as happens in India, Pakistan, and USA, is not tolerable and shall not be tolerated. Let's have definite limits on what we call protests rather than let it be a free for all. That is not a sign of civilization. That's a sign of madmen assembled together. And the media just fans the fire of hatred, fire of discrimination, fires of indiscipline that are essentially harmful to any nation, to any community. Protest, but protest legitimately, at legitimate place, in legitimate fashion, without harming people or insulting your own institutions and symbols. Thank you.